You may have heard musicians talk about keys. What key is this song in? Can we play it in a different key? I can't sing in that key. This is my favorite key to sing in. When musicians refer to keys, they're referring to the major scale that a song is in. Sometimes a minor scale, but in this case we're going to simplify and say that they're referring to the particular major scale that the song is in. Major scales are the building blocks of melody, of chords, and therefore progression, and therefore pretty much every song we know. So it's imperative that every musician understand what a scale is. If you're a singer, it's really, really important that you understand what a major scale is so that you can transpose songs that you play into new keys that work with your particular voice. If you're a musician playing with a vocalist, it's very important that you're able to transpose songs for that vocalist to help them. The ability to play in different keys is one of the most important skills to develop as a musician. And this is where it starts. So you should have printed out this sheet, your major scale sheet. In this case, it's the sharp major scale sheet, because every scale that we write out is going to use sharps. When you look to the top left of your page, you'll see this pattern. The W stands for whole step, the H stands for half step. You can see that the whole step, half step pattern of the major scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. You could also refer to that as 2 wholes and a half, 3 wholes and a half. Sometimes I remember it by thinking of the fact that there are half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1, the 3rd and 4th degrees of the scale, the 7th and the octave of the scale. And then I remember that everything else is a whole step. So you can see that I've sort of preloaded my staff here. And we're going to go ahead and write out our C major scale. I found the lowest root that I could find because I'm going to be going up with my scale notes. I don't want to end up way off the staff up here. I have numbers for the degrees of the scale underneath the staff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. There are 7 notes in every major scale. And then we get back to the 8th, also known as the octave. When we start from the note C, it's really, really important, actually before we go there, it's really important to remember that in our alphabet, our musical alphabet, every note set, every letter set of notes has a whole step between it, except for E and F and B and C. Those two sets of notes are naturally a half step apart. Okay? That's going to help us as we go through this. So we know that first we need a whole step from the root. So I'm on the root. I need to go a whole step. So a whole step from C, I know, happens to be D. Now I'm on D. Now this is really important. Because I'm on a D, the next note has to be some kind of an E, whether it's an E sharp or E flat or E double flat. It has to be an E of some kind. Okay? So I'm on a D. I need a whole step. E happens to be a whole step from D, so that just works. Now I'm on an E. The next note has to be some kind of an F because I'm on an E. So I have to make sure that I'm always going straight through the alphabet. Here, between 3 and 4, I have a half step. The next note after E is going to be some kind of an F. Okay, well, how far is E from F? Well, you know, because you're all music nerds, that E and F and B and C are the built-in half steps, so I don't have to do anything to that F. That fits the half step profile. So now I've got my whole half. Next, I need 3 wholes and a half. So a bunch of whole steps are going to happen now. I'm on the note F. that means that the next note is going to have to be some kind of a G. Well, how far is G from F? That's right, it's a whole step. And that fits. Now I need another whole step. Well, I'm on a G, and that's the end of my musical alphabet, so it starts over, which means the next note has to be some kind of an A, because A is the note that comes after G. I need a whole step. A is a whole step from G. So that fits. I don't have to do anything. Now I need another whole step. I'm on an A, so the next note has to be some kind of a B. Okay? B from A is how far? It's a whole step. I need that whole step so it fits. I don't have to do anything. I'm on a B. And now, the next note has to be some kind of a C. I need a half step here. Between B and C is how far? Well, we know as music nerds that between E and F and B and C is only a half step. So E to F is a half step, B to C is a half step. Okay, so this is my C major scale because I end up with a whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. And that creates this sound. Which is the major scale sound. And then from that, I can build chords in harmony. So maybe I can do this. Okay? And we'll talk more about what that means later. Okay, so that's our first major scale on this sheet. That's the way it should look on the top line. Now next, we go down to the next line. Now in order to do this, you're just going to have to trust me. We're going to go to the fifth, and that note is G. So the next scale that we write out is going to be the G major scale. So we go to the fifth of the C major scale, which is the note G, and that's going to be our next major scale that we're going to write out. So you are going to go to the next line, and you're going to write G maj on top of it, and then you're going to write your root right there, and then you're going to write in these numbers. Make sure they're nice and spaced out, nice and wide, so you're taking up the width of the sheet. Don't scrunch them together. And we're off and running. We need 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. So let's start out with this guy, 2 holes and a half. We're on a G, which means the next note has to be some kind of an A. How far is A from G? It's a whole step. Therefore, we don't have to do anything to that because that's what we need. So we don't have to add sharps or flats. After A comes B. Okay, how far is A from B? It's a whole step. We need a whole step. Therefore, we don't have to do anything to it. No sharps or flats. After B comes C. How far is B from C? It's a half step. What do we need? A half step. So we don't have to do anything, no sharps or flats. We're on C, which means the next note has to be some kind of a D. How far is C from D? It's a whole step. What do we need? A whole step. So we don't have to do anything, no sharps or flats. After D comes E. Between D and E is a whole step. What do we need? A whole step. So we're good. Don't need to do anything there, no sharps or flats. We're on E, which means the next note has to be some kind of an F. This is the 7th degree. Some kind of an F. What do we need? We need a whole step. How far is E from F? A half step. Okay? So what do we need to do to that F? We need to raise it 1/2 step. Because we need to end up with a whole step here. Okay? So E to F is only a half step. We need it to be a whole step. Because 6 to 7 is a whole step. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So between here is a half. So if I can raise that F up 1/2 step, then I get 2 halves, which make a whole step. So how do we raise a note in music? We put a sharp next to it. That's how we get our F sharp. So there's an F sharp. After an F comes a G. How far is F sharp to G? A half step. What do we need? A half step. We're good. Okay? Now, for my next scale. So, on that second line, you should have G major written there. And it should look just like it does on the board. After that, we go to the fifth of G, which is D. So, on your sheet, the third line down, you're going to write out the D major scale. So there I write D maj. I put my D down here, the lowest root that I have on the staff, and I'm off and running. I need 2 wholes and a half. Well, what's a whole step from D? Sorry, the next note has to be some kind of an E. How far is D from E? It is a whole step, so I'm good. I don't have to do anything. After E comes some kind of an F. E to F is a half step. I need a whole step. We just discovered how to do that in the G major scale. Put a sharp next to F. E to F sharp is a whole step. We're good. After F comes some kind of a G. F sharp to G is how far? It's a half step. What do I need? A half step. So I'm good. After G comes A. How far between G and A? It's a whole step. What do I need? A whole step. After A comes B. Between A and B is how far? It's a whole step. What do I need? A whole step. After B comes some kind of C. B to C is how far? Half step. Okay? We know how to deal with this. Between 6 and 7, I need that last whole step, right? But this is a half step. What can I do to that C to make this a whole step? Sharp. I can put a sharp next to it. I can raise it 1/2 step. Okay? So now we're good. Between B and C sharp is a whole step. And we keep moving. After C comes some kind of a D. C sharp to D is a half step. What do I need? A half step. So I'm good. Okay, the next scale that you're going to do is the fifth of that D, which would be A major. So I'll get you started on it, and then you're going to have to finish up the rest on your own. So here is A major, and you're going to start right here. And then you're off and running. You're going to use this pattern and your knowledge of whole steps and half steps and the letters of music to create this next major scale. Okay?